Welcome to Dateline New Haven. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make New Haven tick. 2025 is underway. Happy New Year, everybody. We get to start the year from talking to one of the people in New Haven who, even though she doesn't call attention to herself, is one of the leaders of our government and our community and helps decide what is going to happen in 2025. Board of Alders President Tyisha Walker-Myers. Welcome back to Dateline, Tyisha, and it's so nice to see you. And I'm going to ask you to get so close to that mic that you're almost touching it. So
how's this?
You need closer. You can pull it if you want. But that's good. That's good. That's good. I know you don't call attention to yourself. You don't say, everybody listen to me speak, but we're going to get you on mic. So how was your New Year?
My New Year actually was really great. I spent time with family, and that makes me the happiest. So it was great.
And how you feeling about 2025 coming up?
I'm looking forward to 2025. I think 2025 is going to be a good year for New Haven. I'm praying a lot about it. So.
And why are you thinking it's just because you're a generally positive person? New Haven's on a good track. You have ideas in the hopper.
I think it's a little bit of all that you mentioned. I am a positive person, but I think New Haven is doing some great things as well. So I just see 2025 being better than 2024.
You know, that question is very interesting to me because when you talk to people who don't follow news so much or who don't live here anymore, like I was talking to someone yesterday used to be here, say, how's New Haven doing? And I realize, we all have our own perspective on it based on who we talk and how we live. So that since the dawn of time, there's been poverty. Since the dawn of time, there's been violence. If violence hits your family, life's bad, right? Or like if your street is having a problem. But I say that, New Haven seems to be doing so well on balance. Like, of course, we have problems and challenges that you, as much as anyone in town, dealing with. But I think about where we were 40 years ago, and I always loved New Haven. But I kind of feel like we kind of got it together in a lot of ways. Yes, there's violence, but I kind of feel like we've kind of turned the corner a little bit on some of the policing stuff. We're not at war with our police department. We're trying to do good things. I mean, I'm really curious. And the housing is affecting all cities in the country, not enough affordable housing, but we're building all these projects, including increasing the supply, and we are building affordable housing. It'll never be enough, but am I wrong? Or what do you base it on when you think New Haven's on a good cycle?
I think you're correct, right? I think people, of course, are emotional beings, right? So when something is directly affecting your life at that time, that's all you could see. I try to look at things holistically. I try to think about where we were and where we are now. Of course, poverty is the problem, right? And it's not just the New Haven thing. I think that poverty...
It's in the Bible.
It's the root cause of everything, right? It's the root cause of the violence in the community. It's the root cause of people not having affordable housing. It's the root cause of everything. So when I look at an issue, I try to look at it holistically. I think we are on a good track in New Haven. Of course, we'll never have enough affordable housing, but when I look at my own community, I'm proud of the affordable housing developments that we're bringing there. We have Antillian Manor that came back online with all 100% affordable units. We didn't lose anything there.
Are they open again?
Yes.
Because I walked by there and noticed that was kind of fast. I remember I had questions at the time. I was a little concerned about it going private when it had been a co-op. I was wondering, would they bring people who were there come back? Would they want to come back? So what is happening with that?
So it's beautiful. People that wanted to come back are there. The apartments are beautiful. They're managing it very well. The units are full and it's vibrant. It's adding to our neighborhood beautifully. So I'm proud about that. I'm also proud of Curtis Coalfield that's coming online.
And that's at the other, because you're at West River and Dwight. So when you go, that's at one end, Tillian Manor on near downtown Day Street. And then you go to the other end of the boulevard and Route 34. That's when you see Curtis Coalfield.
Yes.
And that's where the median strip was, where they're building. They're looking kind of nice. I went by there yesterday. I thought, it took a long time to get going. So tell me about that and why you're feeling good about that.
I'm feeling good about it because everything worth having takes a little bit of time, right? A lot of people in the neighborhood was invested in that before I even became alder.
Really, 10 years ago?
10 years. I've been in office since 2011, but they were working on that project before me. When I came into office, I made a commitment that I was going to help them get to the next step, and I did, working along with Mayor Hart. And I'm excited about it because we're finally about to see people move in.
Really?
Oh
Because they
yeah,
look
it's
move-in ready to me.
well.
Oh,
Listen,
I guess the
they're
part
working
that's
hard every day.
farthest away from the boulevard, I know those are more complete. Is that going to be mostly affordable housing?
Yes, yes.
And then where are the kids going to cross the street? I was wondering with all the cars going so fast.
So we're also working on traffic calming around that area. So everything is
I
all
think you have to
working.
basically steal everybody's tires
Well,
to got that
no,
block.
that's not. I don't think that's so. I think different behaviors you have to change them, right? We have to model certain things. So I think the first step, which we're actually taking, is looking at the whole area and the needs of the area and what we're going to actually need so that everybody is safe. So we've been thinking about that. So I'm excited about that when people actually move into there.
And I guess they cross in two different ways. There's partly crossing MLK and Legion just to the rest of the neighborhood, which is one set of behaviors. And I already seen, Tyisha, that they do have some traffic calming already starting on those streets. I think those two are definitely doable, even though they originally intended as like almost a highway. Boulevard's tough.
It's tough,
Boulevard's tough at the other end of it. I wonder how people are going to cross that to the park.
but we're going to see.
I wonder if they can maybe walk down a few blocks before they cross Boulevard. There are probably different crossings, right?
We're going to make sure everybody is safe. Will we have hiccups? Of course, nothing is perfect, but we're going to work hard to make sure everyone that live in that establishment.
And is that mostly
is safe.
affordable?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay. And then there's another big thing in your district. And you're saying that's coming online now. People are going to start moving in.
Yeah, soon. 2025, you're going to see people moving in. They're working every day. Every day, they're
There's no
working
question
on
that thing's
project.
happening now. Yeah. And then the other big thing in your district, I mean, huge game-changing nature of the whole neighborhood is that neuroscience center being built at the old St. Rafe's campus of Yale New Haven. I mean, these huge, we don't even know what they all were. Yesterday, we were going by the garage that's on the not on the chapel side, on the Edgewood side. No.
Orchard.
Orchard and Chapel. That's a garage, right? And they actually did okay with that because you don't immediately know it's a garage. It actually doesn't look ugly. The way they did something with the structures, they put the netting or whatever in the open spaces. I don't know. I don't know what you thought.
Well, what we try to do in West River, we try to talk about things and we try to make things look like the neighborhood. We don't want something coming in the neighborhood that looks totally different, that changes the whole history of the neighborhood. So we work really hard and we have really hard conversations about like what we want to see in West River, Dwight West River. So I think that came out of one of those conversations.
The people say we don't want a big ugly garage at that corner.
Pretty much.
Now you go to the other side, and on two separate blocks, we have those cranes high in the sky, right? Am I right that you have Orchard and George, and then Sherman and George? Two huge buildings goes up. Those are going to be neuroscience centers, a combination of research and people being treated. The population's aging, right? So a lot of that stuff's going to be for people like me who are starting to forget things, right? Right? So what are you thinking about that? How are you feeling about that? How does that tie into the neighborhood? There was some feeling that wasn't going to be for the neighborhood.
Well, when we first started, some people believed it wasn't going to be for the neighborhood. But if you live in a neighborhood and you need care, you're going to go to the hospital. So, of course, it's for people in the neighborhood. I'm excited about it because the Neuroscience Center was not just focused on the Neuroscience Center. It was other things that came out of that development. The hospital actually paid attention to some of the other traffic common things that we need in the neighborhood. And they're paying attention to that, and they're working along with everyone to make sure those things happen.
What kind of stuff?
So they work directly with the West River Neighborhood Association on some things. As far as like we need the lights to be timed a certain way, right? Because we had to do a traffic study because now will more traffic be coming in the neighborhood going out, how the flow is gonna go. So those things that's really important to people that live in the neighborhood. I live right across the street, basically, right down the street from there. I live on Winthrop Avenue, Winthrop by Gilbert. So of course it affects me. I live over there. So I'm gonna make sure that the things that happen in the neighborhood, that the neighborhood is actually, we might not be 100% happy because you can't make everybody happy, but that the neighborhood is actually gonna benefit.
What's this thing, I watch you in your role sometimes because as the board of alders, it's like Congress. You're the closest to the people, constituents. You bring them and their concerns to you. You're in the room with the heads of Yale New Haven and the mayor and everybody making these decisions. And a lot of times when you're building a neuroscience center, you're building housing, you're creating jobs, especially with the neuroscience, and you're going to have more people around, so there is going to be more traffic. Do you ever feel like you're pushed from the loudest voices not to have things happen because of the challenges it creates? Or do you feel as a citywide leader, you're looking at the larger perspective of the people you're not hearing from who will have more jobs, or if the tax base, like I said, the tax base doesn't increase, but more housing gets created. I remember you had the whole controversy with two legitimate sides about the park, right? When you about whether there's going to be housing built there on Kensington Street. How do you balance that as you're a leader of the whole board of alders? You're like a mayor. You're the head of that branch, looking at this, and you're dealing with alders who have their own constituents and figuring out how that's going to fit into a whole to pass legislation rather than just the concerns of the 23rd Ward where you are. How do you balance that on projects like the Neuroscience Center housing that goes up?
Well, I think the balance come in because I'm just like a practical person. I'm the leader of the Board of Alders. I am the president. I worry about Ward 23 because that is who I directly represent. But I also represent everyone else. I listen to the concerns of everybody in the community. And then I make the best decision. What's going to actually benefit the city? Because sometimes I think when you're really close to something and you have an idea about how something is going to go, you don't look at the whole picture because you're stuck on your opinion already and what you think. I'm really not like that. I can argue any point for or against any project that come in New Haven. Anything that happens in New Haven, I can argue for it or against it.
I'm also wondering how you measure public sentiment. So, like, people who are upset about something, we want to hear from them. They should speak up. They're more motivated. They don't represent the whole city. They don't represent. So how do you know if people are just fine with something or they're going to benefit and then they're going off to the job and not calling their alder? How do you know, like, who's the people? Or you just look at the merits of the argument?
I always encourage people to come and participate in their Board of Alders meetings. And I talk with the alders. It's not like we don't talk. It's 30 people that job really rely on each other. So we talk. We talk about the concerns that some of their constituents have. And believe it or not, some of their constituents reach out to me. And they let me know. They're not shy. They're not shy at all. They let me know how they feel about certain things. I think as a whole, collectively, the Board of Alders make the best decision for the city.
We're talking to Tyisha Walker-Myers, who's been the president of the Board of Alders now for 10 years. We're talking about year 11. She's starting out 2025. Look forward to see. So housing's been a big issue. You came to office in 2011 with a group of alders who were active in the labor movement and had been, learned about leadership, community organizing and leadership. You rose up the ranks of Local 35, Jeanette Morrison in social services with the state, Anna Marchand, Yvette Hamilton. These are people who learned about how do you organize people, listen to people, make decisions, and now you've taken that to government and stayed. So one of your big issues, you have an agenda, has been housing. Homelessness around the country and in New Haven is booming. I think went up 18% or something last year, if I have that number right. New Haven, we're seeing a lot more people on the streets. What should we be doing about homelessness? What are we doing about homelessness?
I don't have all the answers. Homelessness is a big issue. I think the reason why we're seeing the larger numbers is because New Haven is a place that has some resources. When you look around, some other places don't have resources for the homeless population. What I think we should do or can be doing differently around homelessness, I think we have to start talking about and dealing with the issue regionally, because it's not just enough for New Haven to be trying to tackle such a large issue. So I think
we do more services and more housing for the homeless than anybody else. We also have more poverty. So we have this combination of people come to New Haven or are homeless, and there are people who do live here and lose their homes. I mean, you've lived in neighborhoods of people who are struggling your whole life. You don't have a lot of leverage regionally, right? You can't make the suburbs change their zoning, right?
So I'm going to disagree a little bit on that, because we might not have a lot of leverage like you said, but I actually think the more conversations that's happening around homelessness, we'll have some leverage, right? Because we're not just servicing people from New Haven. We're servicing people from the suburbs and everywhere else. And yes, we do have some people that lose their homes and all of that, but the root cause of most of these things, and I'm gonna say everything that's going on here, is poverty. It's poverty. And if people don't have an opportunity to be able to enhance their lives, we're going to have issues of violence, homelessness, failing schools, and everything else. So I don't have like,
What would you like them to do? Like, there's a group that's suing the suburbs to change their zoning so you can build more housing, denser housing, allow Section 8 certificates to be used. I know the Housing Authority bought a project in Brantford so that they would accept Section 8 there. Are those the concrete? What kind of concrete things you looking for the suburbs?
you just named them. I want them to react and help and assist in taking care of the people that are leaving their communities, right? Because that's the overflow that we're getting. Look, I've never been really popular, never really tried. Those things that you named are things that I think they should.
What about building homeless shelters? And
They should do that
like
too.
last year, there was a church in Guilford that had a lot of land, and the people who were building the tiny houses in the hill and living in them went there to raise money. They sang a song about how the mayor of New Haven should just build more housing now, and they had something like acres of land around their church in Guilford. Does anyone ever say to them, "Why don't you build some of those tiny houses in Guilford"?
Well, I can't say I've been a part of those conversations or was there for the song or anything like that. But why don't you build some of those homes in Guilford?
And then when debate in New Haven, we've had it more than any time in yours in my lifetime. There's been this boom in building apartments. Housing is getting built a lot in New Haven. The Coliseum is going fast. There are 4 big complexes in that part of Worcester Square near downtown where there were just lots before. Audubon's going up the 3rd phase. I mean, it's project after project. The ones you've been mentioning, those incredible 4 big projects at Science Park within a block of each other, plus Bethel, about a block and a half away down on Dixwell. Some people say you just build more housing if it's market rate housing, because that will make more housing for everybody because of supply and demand. That even if you build housing that's just for people who have money, that makes other rents stay lower and there's enough housing, therefore, in the city. Other people say you have to require that people building the housing include a lot of subsidized units and for people who need affordable housing. Then other people say they then can't build it because they can't make money doing it that way. What's your feeling on that debate? That's called build, build, build versus NIMBY.
You have to find a balance. You have to find a balance because when you start requiring certain things, people have the option to either say yes or no, right? I think we have to find a balance. I think there are tons of buildings going up in New Haven, but the population of the people that actually need the housing, are they actually going to live there? Like, we have to be realistic. Are they actually going to live there? Can they afford to live there? So what we're doing as a board of alders, we're trying to focus on affordable housing, trying our best to make sure that we have affordable housing projects like the 3 projects. I think I mentioned 3 projects in my neighborhood.
Cofield, Antillian
Cofield
Manor.
and Monarch.
Oh, Monarch, the old. I love that one because I love the name of the old laundry and the history it preserves. And you have Beulah, which is a big one on Dixwell. But one thing the alders did take on was ADUs, accessory dwelling units. We used to call them mother-in-law apartments. When you have a backyard or a garage, you fix it up into another apartment. We wanted to make the rules easier for that. You drew up a law for that in 2024. That we did not pass that law in 2024. It stayed in committee. What's the status of that? Is it going to move out in 2025 or does it need to be changed?
So we're dealing with the ADUs. We've been working really hard. On it. It's like with every piece of legislation that comes before the board. Most of the time when things are ready to move, you start thinking of another way, like, hold up, we didn't actually look at this or look at that. So I think some of that most of the time be happening, but we have to think about once everything is passed and people are able to build those type of houses, small homes in their backyard, can they actually afford to do it though? So what is that actually going to produce at the end? Because it's expensive. You can't order parts now. They cost tons of money. It's a lot of delays. So I think we have to think about that too. We have to think of ways to always make it easier. Access. I talk a lot about access. We have to make things accessible for people to be able to make their lives better. And
So
I
what does
think
that mean on the ground? What needs to change in that ordinance to make that happen? Like what's holding, and I agree with you that you want to take your time to pay attention to laws you pass so they actually accomplish what you want the laws to do, right? Isn't that what you're saying? If you have an ADU law, you want to make sure it's right so it's actually people actually going to build those ADUs and it's expensive to build ADUs. How is that playing out and why it hasn't passed yet? What needs to change in it?
Well, the legislation committee is working on that, and they're working on that with the city. So I believe, I believe that whenever it's ready, it's going to come out. Look, um,
No, I'm just
no,
interested in
no,
what the
I'm going
issues are.
back to it.
Yeah, yeah.
I've had like a really tough 2024. So when you're talking about like all of these things, on the top of my mind, I might can't point to exactly what's holding it up.
But
And
also,
I'm
I think
not
then
going to.
your job partly is to let the process work and then see where people are going, right? Like your job isn't to be in the legislation committee working out the fine points. Isn't your point to have people in the legislative committee seeing what the issues are, coming up with something they think is right, and then it comes to the full board?
Absolutely. That's where I was going. So
Yeah.
I was going to say, so what I'm doing is allowing the chairs who were chosen to be there for a reason to work through the process. Yes, I do get involved in certain things at certain points, but the alders actually do the work, and that's what they're doing with that. So I have full confidence that whenever they're ready, they are going to produce something that is going to be beneficial.
Do you think it's
to
going
the
to
city.
pass in 2025?
Possibly.
And I think that's part of leadership, right? Knowing when you get involved in the nitty gritty and when you don't, you let other people, right? There is an issue there about, I guess the mayor wants to exempt, to have people who are absentee owners covered or not covered. They don't want the absentee owners to be able to build all these apartments and just create new Mandy's. Do you know how you're coming out on that one?
Well, the mayor could want whatever the mayor wants, right? But at the end of the day, the board of alders is going to be the ones to make the last decision. So,
No, I just meant how are people feeling about this thing about whether, like, if you own the house, you want to make your garage your perfect apartment. That's one thing, as you point out, it's expensive. So the people who really, in some of the other cities, have done it are the Mandy's. You know, the people who own a lot of property, get a lot of investment in. People aren't always crazy about the results. Yeah.
well, if you look at the history of the board of alders, we haven't really been that excited about the Mandy's and places like that actually, um, taking care of properties and buildings. So I believe that the board of alders will be very interested in helping the property owner figure out how to do that without having a Mandy or somebody involved.
Yeah.
If I had to say what the board would do today.
Yeah. And then how do you feel LCI in the past? Two big things I think happened in housing in the past 2 years, which you played a role, was the support for tenants unions. New Haven's become a leader in that. And that's had an impact with these property management companies. And the improvement in LCI, or there's a new director with a charge to get tougher and do more inspecting and not have situations like in the Hill when we paid millions of dollars because the people dying in the rooming house fire. How did you feel it went in 2024 with LCI's changes and the rise of tenant unions, and what do you see in 2025 on those issues?
I think tenant unions are great. I think we need more of them. I think people should actively be involved in where they live at. I think that's really important. I actually think LCI should be doing more inspections. I do. I think we have to get tougher. We have to do more, but we also have to have the resources to do that. And a lot of times these things come down to resources. I think LCI, that department, always cared about whether people were living in good living conditions and things of that nature. I think we'll continue. I think in 2025, you'll see more tenant unions possibly popping up because people are seeing the direct effect of that. And I think LCI will be doing more inspections. I think they will be holding these landlords accountable. Everybody should live in fair, clean housing.
I like these hearing officers they've enlisted now. That's kind of fun. Tom Breen's been writing about that, Lord Lesby. It's been watching that happen. Do you feel the changes have been positive at LCI in the last year under the new leadership?
Well, I don't think we have enough information, right, at this point to say whether or not like it was the best thing or not. I think the changes at the time was necessary, and I think that we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that it works. But if it doesn't, then we'll just change it again. That's the good thing about government. You can constantly change things and improve things if they're not working. So
We're talking to Tyisha Walker-Myers, who's the president of the board of Alders. I wanted to ask you about that. You've been president for 10 years. You weren't someone who was like launching some big political career. You worked yourself up, I believe, as a cook in Local 35. You became a high-ranking person in Local 35, and then you became an alder, and you became, after George Perez left, you became the board president. You were just talking about how government, you could always go back and make it better. Government, you got to make sure you're hearing from everybody and then make a decision in the best interest. What has surprised you as you settled in for 10 years in this job about how to do it and how government works? What have you learned that you didn't know?
that's a great question. What did I learn that I didn't know about
Even if it's just an instant, like, oh, I didn't think that was going to happen.
I didn't know that government was so slow.
It is.
I didn't know
Some
that
people
it take
think
that
that's
long.
good.
Possibly, but I didn't recognize how long it actually took to get things done. And I can appreciate that sometimes. And then sometimes I just feel like, yeah, are we doing enough? Is it fast enough? But at the end of the day, I think it's worth it.
And can you give me some examples of that? Things that took longer than you thought? ADUs, right?
Yeah.
And are you talking about a balance between sometimes you got to take extra time to get it right, and other times you kind of got to light up the flame and get moving?
I think I'm just talking about how long things take in government, right? When I think about my own neighborhood and I think about the Curtis Cofield Estates, that took a really long time and people was actively working on it. So that's one of the examples that I would provide, that government isn't always as fast as we want it, but it's worth it in the end. So I would say that because people were actively working. Once we got everybody committed to doing it, everybody was committed, but things happen. Life happens, right? Everything isn't, we can have as many timelines as we want, but if something happened, the timeline.
And also,
has
there are
to
a lot of different groups in society. If your government is supposed to, and private work can take long, but sometimes it doesn't. If you're just building something, the only reason you're building is you want to make money, which is okay. I mean, America allows that by law. But if you're building Cofield State, you want to make sure nonprofits involved. You want to make sure there's affordable housing. You want to make sure that it's built in a way so families can live there safely. So in government, you got union rules, you got different constituencies. So that's, I mean, so I wonder if like you look at 10-year stretch looking at both your neighborhood, which is loosely defined because that's a big area. We talk about Westville, right? And as a city, I'm wondering if in 10 years it becomes easier to appreciate how much government can accomplish. Like I'm thinking covering New Haven for 45 years. I'm remembering debates from the early 80s, late 70s about how they'd like New Haven to be built up. And then we weren't able to do a lot of things we wanted that we thought New Haven should do for different reasons. And now, because of factors beyond our control, like small EdMed cities doing better, those are the jobs that aren't leaving. Those are people want to live there. New Haven's interesting. All of a sudden, we're building all these things we wished we could have, and then it happens faster. And I'm wondering, from your perch, you look at 10 years ago, you saw government working slower, that you now can look back and say, well, Cofield's happening. Well, until it happened. Well, Yale is building this big neuroscience center. We did make a lot of straight streets have the speed humps, and I wonder if it just looks different to you from 10 years than 2 years in and saying, why is this taking so long?
So I'm proud of everything that we accomplished. I'm really proud to live in New Haven. Like I chose to stay here as an adult and raise my family. So I love New Haven. When I first came in, like I said, I did not realize that government was so slow. But now I better understand the process of government. So now it's just like, even if it does seem slow to the regular person, because that's the people that are assessing and evaluating what we're doing, right? Someone that don't know a lot about government, it seems slow, but it's always worth it in the end to take the extra time to like make sure all these things are correct before we do it. So I love New Haven.
And do you feel ADU is an example of an issue that it's worth the time we're taking to make sure we get it right?
Well, I know you like to keep going back to the ADU thing.
Well, it's just such a good example that popped up today. Yeah.
But I believe in the board. I believe in the committee that's dealing with the
Because
issue.
we don't want to do it wrong.
Right. And I believe that when it's done, it's going to be correct.
I would talk now. Another issue that's never fun to talk about, but takes up so much of any elected official's time in a city is crime and policing. And that no matter how much progress we make or how much we go backwards on policy, when people are yelling at you or something feels really hard, you've lost people in your family since you've been older, like a whole string of people in your immediate family and near immediate family have been killed. And like, that's tough. And that's not you deal with an older. When you look at that perspective, A, did you know that was going to be such a big part of your job? B, do you feel that you've seen progress and you're going where you want to go on this issue?
So I have lost a lot of people over the course of my tenure on the Board of Alders, some to gun violence. I think actually we're heading in the right direction with the police department. I think the relationships are different, and I think that we work really hard. And I look at it from all perspectives. I said it a little bit earlier. I can look at things always positive and negative, and I think that we are doing the things that we need to do to make sure that we're all working together. Look, one death is too much in this city, right? One is too much. That affects somebody somewhere in somebody's family. I just think that our police department, under the current leadership, is working really hard to change the way the community perceive the police, and that's something that is very important to me.
Mm-hmm. And what are they doing specifically that you like?
Well, it's a couple of things they do that I like. When they go and they're participating in the community events, that's important. When they're going and they're reading stories to the children in schools, that's important. Every positive interaction that the police have with our children or anybody is a plus for the community.
And is it partly that personnel is policy? They say often that who you choose to do the work is more important than the fine points of the policy. They have the right person around the police department. They're not going to have people beating people up, and they're going to be accountable, and they're going to care and hear the community. And that if you have the wrong people, it doesn't matter how many rules you have in place, you're going to have trouble. Because one thing you guys did is you changed the rules so that you get to say yes or no to who the police chief is.
Yes, we changed the rules.
I mean, that was good.
That.
You made it like Congress, where top people have, where the legislature gets to weigh in and represent the people about who gets hired to big jobs. Do you feel good about, like, do you feel that that's true? That, like, getting to choose who holds these important jobs is as important as whether or not AI is going to write police reports and whether it's a civilian review board or police commissioner board that has subpoena power?
I think everything works together for the good. I think that when you actually say yes to the person that is that's going to lead the department is important. I think that policy is important. I think it all worked together for its good. I think the police commission role is important. I think the civilian review board role is important. I think the order role is important. I think the police chief's role is important. So I think it all worked together. I think that's one of the things that I'm also proud of, how we bring everyone that has a seat at the table and people that don't to the table so that we can make these decisions on behalf of our community.
I'm just not picking up on strife. I'm not picking up on alders fighting with department heads, or I feel like this has been a period of a common set of goals and that we're pursuing when it comes to housing, policing, poverty. Is that right, or am I missing something?
Absolutely. We build the agenda together, so everybody has buy-in, and everybody's held accountable to that agenda. And I think it's just easier when you have a large group of people to come together with a common goal or common goals and then work from there. Is it always easy? No, it's not. It's not always easy to get everyone to buy in. It's not always easy. Everybody has their own personal opinions. But what I try to do as the leader of the board, like with me, what you see is what you get. That's just Tyisha. And at the end of the day, I'm respectful of everybody. I listen to people's opinions, and then I lead. And that's what we do. And we're comfortable with the things that we all agreed on. And those are the things that we all agreed on.
So people who have your position in cities throughout the country, especially blue states, are going to face a challenge this year. They're going to be at odds with the Trump administration about immigration. And the Trump administration has threatened. They said that if you don't cooperate with us to round up immigrants to deport, which is something we very much don't do, right? That we're going to hold money that you really need for your police department, for your schools. Are you ready for that? Do you know how you're going to react to that?
Listen, I'm ready.
That's tough.
That's going to be tough, right? I'm ready for anything. I'm one of those people that when it's an issue, I take it head on. And that's just what I've been doing for the last 10 years as president and the last years I've been on the board, and that's what I'm going to continue to do. One thing I know is that in New Haven, we are a city that ensures that everyone that is in our city is safe. And that's what we're going to continue to do. I mean, it's going to be difficult, possibly. We have to see. We haven't even entered really into what the Trump administration might look like.
So
I know
don't
it's
assume.
been a lot of.
Don't assume, right?
Well, I try not to assume. I'm a person that like to work with facts because you can tell me anything, but you got to prove it to me.
Yeah.
And I just think that we're hearing like a lot of talk about what I'm going to do and, the kind of beating on the chest and all of that stuff. But I'm waiting for it to actually play out because there are a number of different places where policy has to go through and a bunch of different things before it actually get to the city of New Haven.
Do you mean like the State Trust
Absolutely.
Act? Like in other words, the state has to decide whether the Trust Act is in place and things like that.
So I'm going to just give you this example. I'm going to make it really, really simple. I'm the president of the Board of Alders, right? So I can say anything. I'm going to make 500 decisions, but it's 29 other alders that have to agree with me for me to make that decision, right? So what I'm saying is I'm hearing a whole bunch of talk about what I'm going to do and all this different stuff. I need a little bit of proof about what you're going to do. So I'm waiting. I'm not a person that I do not like to instill fear in people. That's not what I do. I instill hope. So what I'm saying today is that New Haven has always, as long as I can remember, protected the people inside their city, and that's what we'll continue to do. And that's what I'm going to say about that.
And I think that's a point very well taken. You're saying that hypotheticals, it's not important to beat your chest. You say what your principles are. You say we'll deal with what comes. It's a good answer. I don't have to bear down on that one. We got Tyisha Walker-Evans, Board of Alders President. Election year, it's an odd number year. Do you think we'll see competition for mayor? Because some years we have it, some we don't. What are you hearing?
I'm not hearing anything yet, but possibly. I feel like I think it's every election year is potential to see, people running for whatever office.
So we've had big years. 2011 was when you had your whole slate really changing, 18 out of 19 races for the Board of Alders with a common agenda. 2013, you had 7 people running for mayor, most of them with a lot of experience in New Haven, and then one who had less who actually did better, right? Other years, there were people have their names on the ballot, but there's not really a campaign going on. There isn't a big issue to settle. I remember when DeStefano was mayor for 20 years. There were years when people really were upset about the schools, or they're really upset about crime. They're really upset about education, and then there was someone who ran who talked about that, and then we had it out. Other years, it was like someone had the name up, but you had a debate, that was it. Which of those kind of years do you think 2025 is going to be, since you got a crystal ball?
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't have one of those.
Yeah, you do. I heard you do.
I'm not sure.
But
We'll
you hear
have to
things
see.
on the ground.
I haven't heard anything yet.
What about, are you running again for Alder, you think?
So that's an interesting question. What I would say right now today is I'm going to do, and I'm going to go, and I'm going to do whatever God tell me to do. I'm not one of those people that predict and be like, I'm doing this in 5 years, I'm doing that. I don't know what might change in my life before it's time to run for Alder. Right now, today, that is my plan.
But you haven't made a decision yet.
I mean, that is my plan today is to run, but who knows what might change in my life where that plan has to change is what I'm saying.
That outlook you gave more so in the question about immigration, might be a useful way for us to think about how to navigate the next 4 years, which is not to freak out about everything that's said and predicted, to kind of have a sense that we as a community have a set of values, a way we do things, and that we've had tough times, times that were less tough, and that we'll wait to see what happens and we'll just be ready.
Oh, that's
Don't
great.
don't overreact. I think you're saying don't overreact, but be ready. Is that a fair way?
That's a fair way.
Are you having fun? You get up in the morning and say, I'm so psyched that I get to be the board of Alder's president. I'm at the legislature. I'm Nancy Pelosi. I'm Chuck Schumer. I'm Mike Johnson, New Haven.
No, I get up every day and I say, thank God I'm here, and thank God I have my family, and I just thank God that I can do whatever it is he has me to do and be proud. That's it. Look, I am not one of those people that look for the next political office, none of those things. I just want to be a really good person. I want my children to be proud of me, and I want to do everything that I can to represent New Haven well. That's what I do when I get up.
That's a nice final touch to put on it. And thank you for being here at WNHH-FM to help us kick off 2025 with a discussion. I wish you luck. I hope your 11th year as Board of Alder's President is a great year.
Thank you so much.
And thanks to Harry Droves for being back at the controls for yet another year, keeping our station going and flowing. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night long at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.